Alright, so we're going to make a dinner plate here. Now you don't need a ton of speed in centering. I think that's a mistake people make sometimes if they use too much speed, especially when you have a lot of clay. Just like before in the bowl, we're going to cone this clay. You really want to spend your time wedging the clay for a plate, otherwise you're going to have lots of air bubbles. So clay back down. And then just do it a couple of times. Make sure the clay is nice and centered. I always like to start with a nice dome. Now opening here, when you have more clay, a lot of times I'll have my thumb here and I'll kind of push down my fingers here, my thumb there. Now at the plate, you got to leave a little bit more clay down at the bottom than you think you do. Because a lot of what a plate's going to be is in the trimming stage. Check your depth. Right there. Now at the plate, what I'm going to do is I'm essentially going to take that clay and I'm going to kind of roll it out onto the wheel. But if I take this point here and try to drag it straight, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a bump and it's going to be really thin on the edge. So as I pull, I have to kind of gradually pull up into the side of that clay. Because you want to pull as straight as you can. Then once you pulled that clay out, come back in with your thumb right here, an L shape, and really push down on that thumb, compress that clay. Because all we do is kind of roll it out on there. And if you don't compress that clay, especially if you're throwing a white stoneware or a porcelain, you're going to get a crack. Now at this point here, I'm going to take this clay here, kind of grab it, and I'm going to push down at an angle and just kind of recompress this little spot right here. Come back into your rib. Really compress this clay. Now we have a little bit of clay here, and we're just going to proceed as we would normally. I'm going to squeeze this clay. I have my rib or my sponge right here to compress that lip at the same time that I'm squeezing it. You can hear the wheel slow down a little bit. This clay here, you only have a couple of chances to throw this before it starts to collapse. Come back in here and I'm going to compress my lip. You don't want it too thin, you also don't want it too thick. Now, my foot is going to start about right there. I'm going to kind of mark that spot with my rib. Go back in here and compress this again. I'm going to make sure that this is not humped. Very important that you compress that clay here. Go back in here and I'll clean this up a little bit. Call that good. So on the plate, you might want to make sure that you don't flip it too early because this bottom will sag. But you also don't want to wait too long because it's really hard to use the wire tool to get this off. I'm going to center this guy real quick. Now with the plate, you don't want to trim it if you're doing high fire too thin because they'll sag. You also need to know where the lip and the bottom meet, which is somewhere in here on this piece. So you gotta know your form. So I'm probably gonna start the foot right here. This little wedge of clay here, I'm gonna trim into the lip. Okay. So we got a lot of trimming to do here. I'm going to set my foot first. You also want this stiff enough that you can apply a little pressure when you trim. You can tell how it changes, the noise changes as we get further to the foot, so you know where there's a little extra clay, so a little bit right here. This will also tell you, you'll get used to that noise. Clean this up just a little bit. Burnish this. Now I recommend drying your plates upside down and dry them slowly. Cover them up for a couple days before you air them out. Cover them up loosely. But let's see what this looks like real quick. Alright, so you can tell my foot's right there. So we match that up really well with that ring. So all the weight's evenly distributed. If the foot was farther out, you'd have a lot too much clay. If it didn't match up here, you'd have a little sagging in the high fire. Clean up these edges. You don't want any sharp edges because the glaze won't take that. Now we're going to flip it again. Dry it.